Today, we'll be looking into the lore of Hu Tao, her personality, her backstory, and the relationship she has with the people of Liyue. So, let's get started. Who is Hu Tao? Hu Tao is the 77th director of the Wangsheng funeral parlor and well-known prankster of Liyue. Her name comes from the Chinese word for walnut and can be roughly translated to the butterfly of the peaches, butterflies representing the messengers of the afterlife and peaches representing long life or immortality. Her constellation also references butterflies in its name Papilio Charontis, which means the butterfly of Charon, the ferryman of the underworld in Greek mythology. She is also able to create butterflies from the flames she summons through her vision. When the people of Liyue hear her name, it can make them feel nervous. Though she is widely praised for her wit and shrewdness, her eccentric notions are not as welcome, as she often lets her imagination run wild, leaving others at a loss for words. Her pranks are often done to scare people, as we see with Zhongling.
Xiangling's a riot. Only a little boo and she jumps. She's so easy to scare. Being in the industry that I am, I just love these kinds of people the most. Gotta keep it in check though, in case Guoba ends up toasting me instead.
And some of her comments can put people on edge, as she tells Xinyan, "I like people who play with fire. They're good for business," with a big smile on her face. She seems to have always had an eccentric streak, as we see in her character story. As a 3-year-old, she would read through volumes of classic texts while doing handstands. At 6, she would cut classes and fall asleep in coffins. When she was 8, she started living in the parlor and learning the etiquette of funeral ceremonies. One would never use the word measured to describe her behavior. Though she seems like she is carefree about everything, she takes her duties as funeral director very seriously, accommodating for her clients' every need and request. It is the only time she will show her solemn and dignified side. She received her vision at the age of 13, after her grandfather, the 75th director, passed away. His last wishes were that she conduct the funeral, and so she made all the arrangements herself to the highest standard, greatly impressing the undertakers who had once worked under her grandfather. After the funeral, the 13-year-old Hu Tao grabbed her traveller's bag and crept out alone in the dead of night. In her bag were only a few rations, some water, and a means to create some light. She was headed to a mysterious and seldom seen frontier. Heading straight from Wuwang Hill, one may arrive at the border. It is the line that separates life and death, the secrets of which have been managed by Wangsheng Funeral Parlor for generations. It is a place where the souls of past relatives and the spirits of those with unfulfilled aspirations linger. For Hu Tao, this journey was a chance to see her grandfather once more before he departed forever. For 2 days she journeyed unceasingly before finally arriving at her destination. Yet she was unable to locate her grandfather upon arrival. Between the innumerable spirits she walked, but not one of them resembled the old man. She stayed there the whole day before falling asleep in exhaustion, awakening to a night sky and heavy dew. Around her were gathered a few lone spirits, clapping and laughing. "Silly girl, why would old Hu be here of all places? What were you thinking, looking for your relatives here?" Not one to be swayed so easily, Hu Tao continued to wait, day after day. Her rations gradually disappeared, and her water supplies drained away. But her grandfather did not appear. In the end, it was a little old woman who came to her. She laid eyes on the exhausted Hu Tao and smiled as she spoke. "Look at your stubbornness. You're exactly like old Hu. It's a shame, but none of the Wangsheng funeral parlor directors would ever linger here. You come from a family of plain speakers, so let me return the favor. Go back to where you came from." The old woman bid farewell to Hu Tao before passing over the border and into the distance. Hu Tao watched as the figure of the mysterious woman grew smaller and disappeared, as a sense of doubt tinged with relief manifested itself. At last she came to the conclusion. Her grandfather's absence was due to him having passed over the border as soon as he'd arrived, to the place where he was bound. He had been open and honest in life, leaving behind no regrets. So, was it right for this departure to be framed in regretful terms? With a smile, she set forth on the return journey. The faraway moon had been casting a thin light on the way over, but had now been replaced by the bright light of dawn. As she walked, Hu Tao thought of a saying that her grandfather had often quoted: "Live in life, die in death. Follow your heart, do what you can." It was noon when Hu Tao arrived home. She climbed over the wall into the rear courtyard, went straight to her room, and unpacked her travel bag. With her food and water long gone, and the rest of her belongings unpacked, the bag she had taken for empty instead contained a colourful vision. Just when had it arrived? As one of the few living that had dared to visit the border. Perhaps Hu Tao's actions had moved some unknown god. Perhaps this then constituted a heavenly gift, the ultimate recognition of her strength. This story shows us the strong bond she had with her grandfather, going to a place seen as dangerous to the living just to see him one last time, and being stubborn enough not to leave until she had come to her own conclusion on his passing. She still wears the hat that once belonged to her grandfather, though he was a large, muscle-bound man and had a head at least 2 sizes larger than hers. She spent an entire day and night modifying it so that its dimensions would fit her head. She tells people that the hat is magical, upholding good, repelling evil, and bringing peace. It is her most treasured possession, as no matter rain or storm, even if she is covered in muck, the hat will remain spotless and clean. She calls it the Harmony Hexagram hat, and the plum blossom that adorns it is plucked from a plum tree she planted and grew herself. She will often invite consultants from different walks of life to pass on their teachings to the undertakers after the parlor closes its doors for the day. Of all of the lecturers they have, Zhongli is the most revered, and his lessons have proven to be the most effective in cultivating the competence of the undertakers. Though her nature has her teasing Zhongli due to his old-fashioned style, he is also the person that she trusts the most, possibly as he reminds her of her grandfather. He seems to put up with this, though as we see in his voice lines, she exasperates him.
The current overseer of the funeral parlor? I cannot deal with that child.
She runs the funeral parlor as a solid and reliable director, but still has a tendency to wander off as soon as her undertakers are busy listening to lectures. Her passion is writing and poetry, and at night her shadow can be seen at the moonlit docks or at the highest viewpoints in the mountains, taking in the scenery and shaping it into beautiful poetry. Roaming around freely at night, she looks for inspiration wherever it strikes her, and when it does, she cannot help but to compose a poem on the spot. She also enjoys playing a 4-player card game, accompanied by no one for hours on end. The joys of engaging in such activities remain a mystery to all but Hu Tao herself. Another strange tale the locals speak of is when Hu Tao became enamored with the 2 stone lions outside the Ministry of Civil Affairs. At first, she examined the lions with a thoughtful look, but soon enough, her pensive face gave way to a wide smile. As she slapped them on their forepaws, from that moment on, she would visit the statues each day, petting and washing them as though they were her actual pets, even going so far as to give them the names Whiskers and Mittens, bragging to the locals outside that although their pets were cute, they were nothing compared to her 2 lions, making the locals even more bewildered by her than usual. As the guards got used to her midnight visits of the statues, she discontinued. Now that the guards had to clean the statues again, they asked why Hu Tao had stopped visiting. Her answer was, as usual, absurd. Whiskers and Mittens are adults now and can take care of themselves. Excuse me, I'm running late for my heart-to-heart with the statue of the 7 regarding the meaning of life. Though many think of her as strange or confusing, Qiqi is the one who dislikes her the most. Not long after her initial meeting with the little zombie, Hu Tao decided that, as her self-proclaimed true friend, she would grant Qiqi eternal peace. She would go on to kidnap Qiqi several times while calculating the most auspicious timing for the ceremony, aiming to follow the standard procedure of cremation, after which she would place her in a tomb on the outskirts of the city. She may have succeeded if not for Baizu's timely interventions, as each time he caught up with them, Qiqi was packed in a bag with only her head sticking out, while Hu Tao was vigorously digging a hole for a pyre. Afterwards, she would send Qiqi an apology letter that expressed deep regret that she had not been able to lay her to rest fast enough. None of this was done with any malice, as Hu Tao viewed Qiqi as a spirit that was trapped in this world and eternally suffering. She just wanted to let her have peace and restore the natural order. Qiqi, though, was afraid of death and disliked Hu Tao for her attempts, eventually managing to evade her due to some survival instinct kicking in. Wondering why Qiqi was so desperate to survive, Hu Tao looked deeper into Qiqi's past and discovered the story of her accident and the Adepti reviving her. Hu Tao's heart filled with hesitation on reading this, and she now views Qiqi as a rare exception that eludes the natural laws. Ever since then, her attitude towards Qiqi has completely changed, to the point where she would pamper her, possibly to make up for the misunderstandings. Unfortunately though, Qiqi may need a few more years to forgive Hu Tao, for the damage has already been done. Due to her passion for poetry, she has named herself Versemonger of the Darkest Alleys, and free verse flows forth untamed from her mouth whenever she has free time to be out in the streets. The Hilitune is her most famous work, and is well loved by many across Liyue, with droves of people visiting Wanwen Bookhouse to find a copy of her works. Unfortunately, her anthologies Fiddlesticks and Of Common Lives have yet to be published. Even Xingqiu, ever immersed in books, wanted to meet this strange person, and so decided to visit at an auspicious time, bringing a gift with him. The two hit it off immediately, exchanging poetry and ideas in Wang Cheng's main hall. Xingqiu's traditional style always contrasting with Hu Tao's strange and marvelous verse. There was meaning in her chaotic style, and a catchy but bizarre rhythm that anyone could perceive. Thus did she beat the old master with untrained fists, leaving Xingqiu at a loss for words. Their poetic spar, however, ended amiably, and they have been friends ever since, reading and composing poetry with one another when they have time to meet. Over time, Chongyun was pulled in to serve as an umpire, their laughter filling the streets. Their sessions would often be recorded by bystanders. They say that if ever you should hear a pair of matched verses, one strict and the other playful, you are most likely to have heard one created jointly by Hu Tao and Xingqiu. And that's all I could find on our favourite prankster. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider liking or subscribing to let me know, and if you have any thoughts or suggestions, let me know in the comment section below. Good luck on your wishes, and I hope you have a great day.